Hi folks, this is Eric White. Today I'm going to discuss how to customize your upload and download buttons when you're using the OpenXML SDK for JavaScript. If you've watched the previous screencasts about the OpenXML SDK for JavaScript, you saw that in order to upload and download a file from local storage into JavaScript local code, you have to use this little Flash module. This is in contrast to when you have a website, it's easy to have your web server have buttons so that you can upload documents or files to the web server, and you can also provide links, and when the user presses those links, then the documents or files are downloaded to the local hard drive or to local storage. Well, we have a different problem with making these types of JavaScript applications. We're not uploading these files to the server, we're just uploading them into local JavaScript storage. So in other words, they're going from your local hard drive just to inside your browser, inside of JavaScript variables. And then later from those JavaScript variables down to local storage or your local drive. From Flash 10 on, this capability has existed in Flash. It exists with a couple of caveats. The caveats are that it only works upon the user clicking a user interface element. So in other words, you can't just decide in your Flash application to go and save a file locally. What you can do is put up a UI element and then let the user click on it, and then that opens up a file save as dialog, and then the end user can browse to their desired folder and then save the document or save the file. With HTML5, there are APIs that enable you to upload files into local JavaScript storage. There are plans for enabling download from your local JavaScript storage, and I'll talk about where these plans are right now. There's an interesting website called caniuse.com that lists various HTML5 and CSS3 features and then gives you a grid showing support in the various browsers. The APIs that we're interested in are this file reader API and this file system and file writer API. First, if we look at the file reader API, we can see that the support is pretty widespread right now, that you can read local files in IE 10 and onwards, Firefox for some time, Chrome for some time, and there's support in lots of other browsers as well. The outlook isn't quite as good with the file writer API. At this point in time, the only support is in Chrome. It's unknown whether IE 11 at this time supports it. We'll find out very shortly, and Firefox does not support it at the moment. In particular, this is the one that we're really interested in because this is what we need to use to download our OpenXML documents after we've created them inside JavaScript in the browser. So the workaround at the moment is to use these little Flash modules that enable you to upload and download files, and then these will work provided that the browser that you're using can show Flash and provided that you have Flash greater than 10. And that's a very high percentage of people out in the world. I think it's greater than 93%, and that was the situation a few months ago when I actually looked it up. So it's an okay workaround for right now. Of course, we're really looking forward to when this file writer API is ubiquitous enough to actually use. Let's take a look at this load mod save example. In the screencast that introduced the OpenXML SDK for JavaScript, I discussed these paragraphs that have these IDs, JS upload and JS download. And then in the JavaScript down at the appropriate point, this example calls JS upload.create and JS download.create passing in those IDs, and then these JS upload and JS download modules replace those paragraphs with a little flash button. Now, one of the issues with using this flash button is that you have to supply the bitmaps. You have to supply the bitmap for the up and the hover and the down and the disabled states of that button. You certainly want to make your bitmaps match the rest of the site, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how to make those buttons match the look and feel of the rest of your site. I have examp01 open. It's the canonical load, modify, save example. Let's run this example. And in this example, the top button up here, that's a flash control. This middle button is just a Windows control, and the bottom button is a flash control. Let's go through the process of modifying this load, modify, save to have a different look and feel to these buttons. So I'm going to go over here in my project for OpenXmlSdk for JS, and I'll copy and paste that. And I'll call it examp01-copy. And again, let's load the -copy, make sure it runs, and it does. First thing let's do is let's change the look and feel for this button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into btn modify, and I'm going to change it, and I'm going to say that the height of this button, I'm going to make it 24 pixels. And the width is going to be 80 pixels. So I'm making it smaller. If you're making the button bigger, it would be an almost identical process. Let's make the background color, I'll make it light coral. And the border will be 2px solid red. That should be ugly enough. Now let's press F5, and coral's a little too close to the red. I want a different color. Let's make it purple. Good enough. Anyway, we want to now make these open and save buttons match that modify button. Well, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have to change the height of these paragraphs to now be 24 pixels because we want them to match the height of our button in terms of pixels. The next thing that we need to do is we need to come down here and change these JS upload and JS download calls. So I need to make the width be 80 and the height to be 24. Same down here for the JS download. Width is 80, height is 24. Now we can see a couple of references here. There's the reference to the media/jsupload.swift. That stays the same, but this reference to the upload image, this images/upload.png and images/download.png, these need to change. So let's go create a new folder and create these images in that folder that we need. Here we are in the directory that contains the OpenXmlSdk for JavaScript. It contains all the examples, it contains the actual openxml.js file, and so on, and all of its various dependencies. And this images folder is the one that we want to copy and alter. So I'll copy and paste it. So we'll have images-copy. I'll rename it to images-copy in lowercase and without a space just to make it easier. And I am going to use Paint for a certain amount of this. So I'm going to open up this upload in Paint. So here we can see the images. We need to replace these 4 sections in this single image with 4 new copies of our button. It's going to be upload, hover, down, and disabled. Key point about this is we have one image here that has these 4 representations of the button. the JavaScript module hands this image with these 4 pictures of buttons to the action script, in other words, the code that Flash uses. And then Flash takes this image and cuts it up and displays the various portions as appropriate based on the actions of the mouse. In other words, if the mouse is hovering or the mouse has depressed the button. Let's get the first one. I'm going to press F5. What I'm going to do, this is the example that we have. I'm going to alter this modify button slightly so that I have it to say open. I'm going to use that button for a bit to give me the prototypes for the other ones. I'll change it to open. And there's the open button. I use Snagit to do my copying. I find it pretty convenient, but you can use any screen capture program that you want. I'll copy that to the clipboard. Come over to Paint. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to maximize this, and then I am going to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. That will let it. And I'll paste it in. There I have my open button exactly as I want it. In this particular look and feel, we have hover. It looks the same as the open, so I'm going to just paste it in again. There. Now we need the look of this button as it appears when it's down or has the focus. So I'll come back over here. One of the capabilities of Snagit is that it will delay if you want it for a couple of seconds or as long as you want it to before it takes the snapshot. And second, it will also optionally not capture the cursor, and we want both of those. So there I have the image as I want it to appear when it's down. Copy that to the clipboard, come over to Paint and paste it in. Doesn't look a lot different, but the open is actually offset. Now I need to get the screen clipping of the button when it's disabled. So I'll come over here and I'll disable my button that I'm using as a template for these other bitmaps that I'm creating. I'll disable it. And there we have the disabled appearance. I'll use Snagit to get my screen clipping. Copy that to the clipboard. Go to Paint and paste it in. And there we have our 4 buttons. And now the next thing that I need to do is I need to change the size of this. I can just grab this and bring it in there. And there I have a new image that contains the button as it appears when nothing's happening, the button that appears when the mouse hovers over it, the button that appears when the mouse is down, and how it appears when it's disabled. And I'll save it and close Paint. And next thing I need to do is I need to come down here and I need to change the location of the upload and download images. So I'll put in the new folder name that I created, save that. I need to do something else, which is go clear the browser cache in Internet Explorer. So I'll tell it I want to delete browsing history. And mainly what I'm interested in is deleting these temporary internet file and website files. I don't really care about deleting the other stuff, but it's okay. It can be deleted. And click OK. Now we can close the browser and we can run it. And now we can see that we have this button up here When I depress it, it looks like it should when it's depressed, and it has the correct operation. Of course, the next thing to do would be to do the exact same operations for the save button. And then finally, what you need to do is to re-enable this modify button and change its name back to modify or what have you. But this is just basically to show you how to create buttons that have the look and feel that you want them to have when you're using these little Flash modules to upload and download files. I think in the next screencast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how to use the HTML5 file reader API to upload files. At least we have that is mainly available in many browsers. Even if you're using that, unless you're going to restrict yourself to Chrome, you have to have the Flash module to download files or to copy the files from local JavaScript storage to your local drive. That's all I'm going to cover in this video. Thanks for watching. Come back often to OpenXmlDeveloper.org. Follow me on Twitter at EricWhiteDev and follow OpenXML on Twitter at OpenXmlDev.